we're going to talk about how to individualize fingerprints. So previously we talked about how to classify fingerprints or put them into 3 groups, arches, loops, and whorls. But once we have that done, we have to figure out how do we take a fingerprint and match it back to a specific finger on a specific person. Like the fingerprint found at our crime scene was from our suspect's right index finger specifically, and not anybody else's in the world's right index finger. And the way that we do that is we use what's called minutiae. Minutiae are characteristics of ridge patterns. So they're the tiny, unique characteristics within the ridges that make each fingerprint unique. Even your own 10 fingerprints are all unique to themselves. Here are some examples of the minutiae. You have, and these are in your notes for you, so you can kind of highlight if you want to. But you have a ridge ending, which is right here. It's where a ridge goes, and then stops. You have an island or a short ridge, which is where you've got just kind of one piece by itself. You have a bridge, which is a line that connects one ridge to another. An eye or an enclosure, which looks like this. A delta, which we've talked about before, it's that triangle shape. A bifurcation or a fork is where your ridge is going and it splits and goes 2 different directions. A dot is a small piece kind of in the middle. A spur is this little line off the bottom here, off the top edge. A double bifurcation or a double fork is where you got a split once, and then the second time it splits again. And then a trifurcation looks like a pitchfork. It splits and goes 3 separate directions. Okay, and these are just some of them, not all of them. Okay, but these are the basic minutiae that they look for. So here's how it works. This is on your notes as well, so feel free to grab a highlighter. But within a fingerprint, and you can see that this print is a loop, it enters on this side, rises up, and exits on the same side. Okay, you've got a delta right here, which would be considered one minutia. Scars are also considered minutiae, so there's a scar anytime you have scars. Let's see, here's your bridge. This is actually a double bridge. You've got one here and then one here. Here's a dot right there. Okay, you've got a bifurcation, goes down this direction. That's where it splits at. A double bifurcation here, so here's your first split and then here's your second split. Here's a ridge ending right here where it just stops. Here's another example of a ridge ending. Okay, here's an example of a spur. And then right here is an island. This island in particular is kind of long. It's all right there. It's just kind of a whole segment that's kind of by itself. So those are just some examples within the fingerprint of what you're looking for when we talk about minutiae. Okay, and you can see like up here, here's another ridge ending. Here is another spur. There's all sorts of things within the fingerprints. So when you compare for individualization, so when you've classified your print and you're comparing it now to individualize it to a specific print, there's no set amount of minutiae you have to have, but the courts generally like between 8 and 12 points of similarity. So 8 and 12 minutiae in the same locations on both prints. So there's no set number. If you only had like a very partial fingerprint, the courts may accept as low as like 4, but most of the time anywhere between 8 and 12 is kind of the guideline that they're looking for to say that yes, it is a match. Anything less than that, they would say you could potentially have it in common. So they're looking for between 8 and 12. Alright, so here's how we do it. The first step is you look at your unknown print from your crime scene and your suspect's prints, and you use Henry's classification, loops, whorls, and arches to narrow down the prints. Okay, so for example, if the unknown print at your crime scene was a plain whorl, you know on your suspects you're only looking for plain whorls because you can't have a fingerprint match, a loop and an arch. You can't have 2 different classification groups. Okay, so the first thing you do is you classify it to narrow it down. That you have to make sure that your unknown print and the print that you're trying to match is the same classification. Then you find 8 to 12 minutiae in the same locations that are the same on both prints and you label them. So here's an example. Okay? So if print A is our in question fingerprint, okay, the one we're trying to figure out, we'll say that that's our crime scene one. We would say right off the bat that we know that this print is a loop, right? Okay, it enters and exits right here, and it's got one delta. So we can automatically exclude print C, right? Because it's a tented arch, so we know that that's not a possibility. There's no way that it can match print C. However, print B and print D are both loops, so we have to take those both into consideration. So now we're going to start to take, we're going to grab our highlighter and we're going to start to take a look. Okay, here is our core. Okay, this one has a core, but it looks a little bit different. This one has a loop in it with its core as well. You've got a delta. This one has a delta too. And this one has a delta, but these two deltas look more similar. So right now we're saying most likely A and D are our match, but we have to find and label 8 to 12 minutiae in each one of our prints. So if I was doing this, not on the board, I would have taken this and I would have labeled this core. And I would have labeled this delta, and I would have done it in both prints. Okay? And my pens don't write very good, but I would have done it down here too, and I would have done 8 of them. Okay, so notice I'm finding the exact same ones in the same spots. Okay, so now let's go through and see if we can find 8 more, and then we'll highlight and label. Right here is a dot in both of them. Right above that is a spur in both of them. There's another dot kind of right to the left of the delta in both. There's a bifurcation right here and a bifurcation here, and then right next to it is a spur on both of them. Okay, let's see what else. There's a ridge ending right here and a ridge ending right there. We can find those in the same places. So how many do we have now? Let's see. We have, okay, 1, we counted this as 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We have 9 right now. So if we wanted to keep going, we could, right? And we could find more and more. And then we would want to make sure all these were labeled. So we would put spur here for number 9, and we would put spur here for number 9, so on and so forth. So you want to find, highlight, and label 8 minutiae in the exact same locations on both prints to consider it a match. And you can see if you tried to find those same ones up here, it would be a no match. There's no way we can find them all in the right spots. So I put this on your notes so that you could try it out. Here's your crime scene. Okay, and then here's suspect 1 and suspect 2. We know the crime scene is a loop, right? Because they enter and exit this side. But both of your suspects are also loops. So you have to decide if it's suspect 1 or suspect 2, which oftentimes you can kind of tell right off the bat, but you still have to find and label your minutia. So like, I always start with my cores and deltas, because usually that's like you can see that that core and that delta are not the same. So we know we're looking at suspect 2. Okay, you can see that there's a scar right here, same scar right here, and right above that there's a ridge ending. There's a ridge ending here as well. Okay, and then we've got an island right there. We've got the same island right there. There's a dot here and a dot here. There's a spur right here on both prints. There's a bifurcation there. Same bifurcation there. Let's see. You've got 2 sets of ridge endings there. Same 2 ridge endings here. We've got another island right here on both of them. And then you would just keep going until you had 8 to 12. And then the only other thing that you would need to do is once you had highlighted them both in the same locations, you would need to label all of them as you went. I'm not going to label them all because it's really hard to write with this pen, but you would label all of them in both prints and then you would know that crime scene match suspect 2's finger exactly. So in order to individualize a print, you have to classify it first so that you can narrow down what type of prints you're looking for, and then you have to find 8 to 12 minutiae that are the same in the same locations on both prints to say that they're a match.